I'd like to call this meeting to order. Amy, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ann, if you call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Saleh.
Here.
Mr. Reiner.
Here.
Mr. Keenan. Mr. Nissy Zerker. Mrs. Boring.
Here.
Here.
Mayor Leclerc.
Here. Thank you. Councilmember Gerber is absent and out of town this evening. Special presentations. Miss Julie Rinaldi, Executive Director of Dublin Counseling Center, has a presentation for us. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, first of all, I'm here to thank you all for your continued support of the Counseling Center. And I have a brief presentation for you. I want to highlight a couple things that are going on that I think are important for you to know about and see if you have any questions after I'm finished or while I'm presenting. Wanted to just give you some updates on where we are. These are our 2011 just overarching numbers in terms of the numbers of individuals served. We'll have a more updated version of this for 2012, probably late January, early February when all of our data is in. But we wanted to give you an idea of just how many individuals and families that we serve in the community overall. We continue to have our contract with Dublin Methodist Hospital where we provide 24/7 emergency care for folks in their emergency room who need psychiatric evaluations. And we continue to run our driver intervention program 16 to 17 weekends a year as well. So just to give you an overall view of how many people we serve each year. We're continuing to reach out to the community as we always have. As you know, we've been in the community for 35 years, and many of you were there when we got our start. So that's been very exciting to kind of circle back around to some of the folks who actually were there in the very beginning, were on our board, gave us our start, and to talk to them about their vision of what we would become. So we hope that you're pleased with the fact that we're continuing to reach out to the recreation center, to the police department, the schools. We are out there and we're out and about. I mean, we're everywhere. We're also starting new programming all the time. One of the things that we started the last 2 years with your support was our military outreach program that we're very proud about. And we're starting a suicide survivors support group in January. There isn't a support group of that nature in this area of town, so we're creating one so that individuals from Dublin and in this area can get that kind of support. I did want to talk to you about a new opportunity that's come up recently. We've been briefing Marcia on this, and a couple of you are aware of this. I did send individual letters to all of you giving you information about this. We're very excited about this. It's going to be a very good thing for Dublin residents and a good thing just in this area of Franklin County. We are going to be merging with Northwest Community Services. They are located in Upper Arlington. We felt that it was really a marriage of two equals in that they have been in their community for 35 years. They have a strong reputation. Both of us collectively have been serving our communities for 70 years. They're strong fiscal partners, and we are going to be engaging in an actual formal merger with them. They're going to be merging into the Dublin Counseling Center and using our federal tax ID. This is all good. This is exactly what nonprofits should be doing, is looking at how can we create better efficiencies and be better stewards of public dollars. And so we're very excited about this. We're going to maintain our locations at both sites, and we're going to make sure we segregate the funding. So I know that's been a concern of some of the other city departments that have allocated dollars to the agencies, but we are very good at that as nonprofits and will continue to do that. One of the things we're really excited about is they have programming we don't have, And we have programming they don't have. One of the things that they have that we don't is a very large and successful older adult program. And so as our community ages, we'll be and the demographics change, we'll be able to grow that programming, and we're very excited about that. It's something we haven't had in place in this community to the extent that they have in Upper Arlington, so we're excited about that. And we're just going to be able to achieve economies of scale that we haven't been able to in the past. So we're very excited about this. We think it's a great opportunity. We have already started talking about how we're going to grow programming and how this is going to be better for the community. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of it. I wanted to give you the opportunity to ask us any questions, but that will be in effect January 1 of 2013. So I don't know if you have any questions. Really, basically, I'm here to say thank you and see if you have any questions about what we're up to.
Thanks, Julie. Questions or comments for Julie, Mike?
Just a quick one. Are you able to accommodate everybody in your current space? Are you going to have to expand, or are you each keeping your separate? I think you said that, but I wanted to just.
Oh, that's a good question. We are going to keep our separate locations.
Okay.
And we actually have outgrown our space, so we're looking at trying to expand into some other space, but we're very busy. So, but we're going to have separate and distinct locations. That was important to both communities.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Julie, you mentioned the Dublin Methodist Hospital. Are you in any way connected or working with Dublin Springs?
Yes, we are. We're actually working very closely with them. We are referring individuals back and forth. When someone needs a higher level of care, we're referring to them. And then when someone's stepping down out of the hospital setting or out of their higher level of care, they're referring to us. So we have ongoing communication with them daily. So,
Good.
Yeah. So it's
Anyone
been a
else?
good relationship so far.
Great.
Great. Well,
Any
thank you
other
for the update.
questions? Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, citizen comments. Mr. Maurer, if you'd like to come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of council and members of management. It's become obvious to me a number of times up here since I've sort of returned that I am either painfully or boringly obvious with lacking in information about a topic, namely the Bridge Street corridor. And that is very true. I realized the other day that I don't know much about it from its point of conception to its legal setup, because I guess I was practicing on the piano most of the time and sick part of the time, but the sickness project is not as long as the other one was. At any rate, I've taken measures. I've gone to the city website and have started reading up on the Bread Street corridor. And,
Excuse me, Mr. Maurer. I'm sorry for the interruption. I wonder if I could encourage you to refer to it as the Bridge Street District.
The Bridge Street what?
District. It
Oh, the
started out as
district.
the Bridge Street corridor. We're
Yeah.
now more commonly referring to it as the Bridge Street District.
Sure, that shows how
You
far
can generally
behind I am.
refer to it as the district.
Yeah, that shows how far I'm behind.
That's fine. Thank you.
Well, at any rate, I've done some reading on the city website, and I've done, well, I've got some questions now, which I'd like to raise. I'm going to slide a number of photo slides into your minds and into your memories. Here's the first one. I would imagine that all of you have at some time or other seen the magnificent Victorian mansions on Broad Street, East Broad Street, and on Bryden Road. Marvelous places. They go back to the Gilded Age, and that's one slide. Second slide. This refers to heavily dense residential areas. And the most remarkable one, in my experience, in this area has been the Minerva Park District. There are a gorgeous variety of structures, of buildings. They're all on the small resident pattern, but there's tremendous variety. I haven't been there recently. It may be that it's aging, and that sometimes has signs that are not pleasant to look at. A third You know, the district I live in, which I think is called the Bel Air Limerick area, it's one that, well, I remember during many years in the past, the residents of that area have come over to my place, and we've built floats there. And I forget which parade it is that judges the floats. It's either July the 1st one or the St. Patrick's. I think it's July the 1st, isn't it? Judges the floats. Anyhow, there's a structure in that area which, for want of a better word, I will use the popular word, which is futuristic. You know that building, that home in the Bel Air Limerick area, which consists of 3 cylinders joined by short hallways? It is a walker stopper. Everybody has been through or around it, stops at that building. And finally, I want to refer to, I think probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest architect in this country was Frank Lloyd Wright. And I don't know whether you've been in any of his buildings ever, but they are astonishing accomplishments. And the key for him was absolute freedom in structure, absolute freedom in architectural structure. Take it or leave it. If you don't want me for that, you don't get me. Now, here comes my question with respect to the Bridge Street district. Suppose somebody was passionately interested in building one of those Victorian mansions or one of those small but highly varied buildings in Minerva Park, or something like that futuristic place in my area, or were the equivalent of Frank Lloyd Wright. Do you think, at this point, can you tell, any of those structures get in there? That's my question. I haven't read enough yet to know.
Mr. Langworthy, could you respond, please?
Yes.
They would get in. They could get in.
We're encouraging a variety of architecture, and we'd like to see some modern things. I think we'd like to see some traditional things. We'd like to see a mix of things, because we think there'll be a mix of people there who have different ideas about the kind of place they want to live in. We'd like to see that happen.
Great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maurer. Mr. Krause? Sure, Craig Krause, yes. Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Eric Krause, and I live at 8606 Kirkhill Court. I'm here to talk about Dublin Parks. Since I spoke before you last time, I had talked to people within the City of Dublin administration and also the Metro Parks staff, and I also have done quite a bit of additional research. I'd hoped to also make a presentation before coming back before you to PRAC, but unfortunately their last meeting was canceled. First, I want to commend Marcia Grigsby, Michelle Crandall, Fred Hahn, and Patty Ranella for taking the time to look at the climbing structure in the Side Audubon Park in downtown Columbus, because I feel it's important to see the climbing structure firsthand in order to fully understand and appreciate what I'm talking about. And they took the time to do so. I've also spoken with a large number of Dublin residents as I've been traveling through Dublin parks, along our paths, and just along the streets since I last spoke to you. The feeling is there is a need for additional outdoor recreational opportunities that adults and whole families can use together. We have a wonderful path system, but the paths should be considered to be part and just one component, not the whole answer for year-round outdoor activities. In downtown Columbus, there is an awareness of the need for outdoor recreational opportunities for adults and their families beyond the path system. Columbus, the Rotary Club, and Metro Parks have been working together to address those needs. The side of Metro Parks climbing structure and also an obstacle course that is soon to be built down there are designed to attract and appeal to young professionals and their families, and they appear to be succeeding in their efforts and have said so. Last time I spoke of the climbing structure in the Side Audubon Park, but one benefit of the climbing structure I may not have mentioned is the sense of community I've observed when I've been there. Strangers of all different ages are talking to each other and helping each other in ways that I've not typically seen in most of our parks or in areas around here. There's a wonderful sense of community associated with that climbing structure, and it would be a great selling point for Dublin. More than ever, I feel a climbing structure similar to the one in that park should be in or near Dublin for the benefit of its residents. Regarding the obstacle course that I talked about last time, I've explained my obstacle course idea to also a large number of Dublin residents, and the response has been overwhelmingly positive. An obstacle course that allows all ages and all family members to use it together would be a terrific asset and fill a void that we have. I urge Dublin to build a unique obstacle course that would actually be designed to accommodate all different ages and different abilities simultaneously, and that it would be different than what they're building downtown in the Metro Park. My research and talks with people have also led me to propose an additional third idea. Dublin should consider installing climbing boulders in a Dublin park. Climbing boulders are rock fixtures no more than 12 feet high and do not require users to have special equipment. The term bouldering is used when climbing is done at or below 12 feet and without ropes. The climbing boulders I'm suggesting would range in size up to one's usable by full-size adults. The fun factor is crucial to the popularity of any feature we put in, and it's definitely present with climbing boulders. People of all ages love to climb rocks, and if you're familiar with the Chimney Tops Trail down in Smoky Mountain National Park, you'll know the major reason why that trail is so popular is because when you get to the end of the trail, you get to climb on the boulders and rocks. Most signs say, gee, stay off the rocks and stay on the trail. This is an exception to that, and that's what makes it so popular. Now, besides the fun, besides being fun, I also found that climbing boulders really develop strength, stamina, and skill in all ages. There are two smaller climbing boulders near the downtown climbing structure, and these consistently and constantly have children climbing on them. They were originally intended for the downtown structure to allow adults to boulder on self. Unfortunately, it's been so popular, unfortunately, it's been so popular that people that go down there to boulder, adults, don't get a chance to use it for that purpose. So I do recommend that Dublin consider a boulder area and to place it in a highly visible and accessible park, based on what I've heard from the residents. In closing, I would like to recommend that Dublin amend its parks and recreation planning policies to include providing outdoor recreational opportunities for adults and whole families, as is happening downtown Columbus. I hope Dublin would not just play catch-up, but actually take the lead in this area. I know it will help in attracting young professionals and their families to Dublin, as well as provide benefits for our existing residents. Thank you. I did some mock-ups to help you understand what bouldering and bouldering areas look like. I just only did one copy of a printed version, but I handed to Ann on a CD right there. But if you want to pass around and take a look at this, as well as just so you can see just some usage of the downtown climbing structure. And just for the heck of it, I did a quick mock-up of what it would look like if we were to partner, for instance, with Metro Parks to put in Glacier Ridge Park. So this is what the structure would look like up there. Do you have any questions I can answer for you?
Go ahead.
I don't have a question to you, but I
Do have a question for Mr. Hahn. I know that you, in the last couple of years, there's been an approval, you went through a process of developing a master parks and open space plan that was ultimately approved and you're working off of. Does that plan have the ability to incorporate these or other kinds of ideas that are different than the things we've had historically?
Yeah, I mean, by the very nature of the plan, it's supposed to be dynamic, and one of the things that is specifically pointed out in the plan is changing times, changing demographics, changing wants and needs of a community should, that is part of, all of our jobs to recognize those trends and changes, and this could well be one of them. So the simple answer is yes, and I think that, hopefully as time goes on, that we won't become so rigid in our planning that we don't recognize other type of opportunities in the future.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, I am sorry that PRAC had to cancel their meeting due to the lack of quorum, because I think we felt that was the next step, sort of, was for them to weigh in on. And I still think that in collaboration with the staff and PRAC, that these kinds of ideas or others, these are wonderful ideas and there's probably many more, should be talked about and incorporated in even next year's, I don't know if this is enough money that it has to be in CIP, or, if it can be in the operations budget or something, but that we do begin to add, some interesting, more active opportunities in our parks as soon as we can.
And Mr. Krause asked me if I felt confident that PrAC would be meeting in December, and I said I have every reason to believe right now that they will be. So hopefully to start that input and potential collaboration with PrAC can start as early as mid-December of this year.
I think that, we're trying to address some of that issue of attendance, but even in the absence of that, I would encourage us to move forward, and if they don't meet, then we need to just move forward. We shouldn't, have them hold up something that, we would have an opportunity to actually potentially implement something in 2013.
Yeah, and Fred and I have had that discussion, as well as Michelle, looking at options, and Eric's been great to provide some good ideas, and we've also had some additional conversations with, there's a company in historic Dublin that has a new type of fitness that they use, things from nature. So we're looking also at, are there things that we can incorporate in the parks that can also be part of our recreational programming? The obstacle course and some things like that could lend itself to that, not only for classes, but corporate challenges and things related to the Healthy Dublin initiative. So we're pretty excited about some of the opportunities that we have and how we can incorporate, or where we could incorporate some different amenities into our parks. And we do appreciate Eric's willingness to do a lot of research and keep us in the loop, and be our rock climbing trainer.
I just want to thank you, Eric, for your energy and for putting this forward. I know you put a lot of time in it, and then, this presentation, which I'm sorry we didn't get to see on, on the discs on the board. But I also want to thank the city staff for having the moxie to go down there and climb those rocks. We just discussed this in a generic way at a meeting or two ago. And then you guys went and took the initiative to go down there, Michelle, Fred, and you, and go examine the product and see if it was a worthy product for our community. So I thought that was really neat. Then a third party told me that you, Marcia, had a lot of guts. You took on the toughest wall, you attacked it, and you climbed right up it, and the toughest trail on the wall. So
I think that's a little exaggerated.
that's what I heard. So lead by example. So. Thank you.
Marcia, when it comes to adding these new opportunities and physical challenges, when we do this, do we go out to the public? Because some of these things are very expensive. And how do we judge the public's interest in this idea, or this idea?
Well, one of the things, we've had our conversation this evening earlier about community survey. That's one item.
Yes.
Information through PrAC. There's also additional information we can send out and get feedback. So there are ways to get information on this, and some of them, they're information that we currently have, or what we know is popular in the field. I mean, Fred gets a lot of ideas from the different associations that he's involved with, similar to what we have in our existing parks. Some of those come from those sources. So we have different ways of getting that information.
Because I could see where an obstacle course could maybe just be built in automatically in Fred's budget, but other things would be extremely costly, and there may be other interests.
Yeah, and it's similar to, anything we do in the capital budget. It's a matter of identifying options and then determining what works and what are the pros and cons of the different projects, and then prioritizing the funding for the projects.
Okay.
Probably may I add something to kind of address that point. One thing I found is that when I was talking to the various residents that moved in from like Colorado, California, Seattle, things like that, they were extremely enthusiastic about this idea and said they have similar features like this in their areas that they moved from and miss them here. Unfortunately, many of the residents hadn't really thought in these terms, And if you try and gauge opinions, I think it's going to take a little bit of faith to understand that everybody that's been exposed to this has thought it's wonderful, but a lot of people, it's not top of their mind. They just aren't aware of it, even in this area, that haven't traveled very much in western states in particular.
Eric, I appreciate your opinion, your hard work, and your research, but when we're talking $1 million, I know that there's been some very active groups that have wanted basketball, and other structures, and that's why I want to be careful when we go forward to make sure we include all of the community and find out, the things that are of prime interest on that. So that's why I'm asking.
Certainly.
Well, and Fred, I'm happy to hear that platform tennis is still a theoretical possibility, and our dynamic and ever-changing parks
There's
plan.
5 people that might.
I think we're gonna.
Yeah, well,
we're gonna
everybody I talk
pursue
to
that-
says they're interested in it.
I think we're going to pursue that with an obstacle course, though, embedded in it to add another dimension to the sport.
I'm gonna see if I can't drum up more support. And Mr. Krause, all joking aside, I likewise appreciate your advocacy. I also appreciate your invitation. I have been to Seidel Park, and hope to return. I literally do not have a day or an evening on a weekday or a weekend to climb at this point. I'm a little intimidated by what Marcia's accomplished. So anyway, I'm gonna spend some time on the indoor climbing walls this winter, and hopefully work on matching her come springtime. But anyway.
May I add some cost information for Ms. Boring to address? I think you're taking a look at the bouldering areas right now. A full-featured bouldering area, when I talked to the company, I was talking about various designs. One that would have 2 large custom-built, in all cases I was having them do their artistic natural rock features because I thought that'd be most appropriate for Dublin. So if we were to do a very central area that has all the features with 2 different large structures for adults and about 4 or 5 of the smaller ones for children in particular, it would be somewhere under $150,000 for things like that. If one of those large structures, the 2 large custom fixtures are the most expensive in the $50,000 to $60,000 range. That includes all the engineering, construction, installation, but does not include shipping.
Sounds a lot better than those.
It sounds, it's different though. These actually have a synergistic possibility right here actually, because unfortunately downtown, people have been frustrated that they just can't get down and do it on the large structure because it's so popular. So that's what got me thinking about that they need a bouldering structure down there, but to just have this more locally accessible within parks that are close to neighborhoods. But so to give you an idea that if it were done with 1 large custom fixture and a bunch of the smaller ones, it would be under $100,000. If we're done with 2 of the very large ones, it would be under $150,000.
These mock-ups are a very talented way of doing it. Gives you an idea.
Thanks. I didn't put too much time in those, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our consent agenda, I would ask council members if anyone wishes to remove an item from this evening's consent agenda. Hearing none, I would move that we approve the actions requested for the 5 items listed on the consent agenda. Is there a second? Thank you. And if you call for the vote, please.
Mr. Reiner? Mr. Keenan? Yes. Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Mrs. Waring? Yes. Mayor Lucklider?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Saleh?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our first reading of ordinances, ordinance 69-12.
Authorizing the city manager to execute an option agreement with American Electric Power conveying certain property located in the city of Dublin, County of Franklin, State of Ohio, to be used by AEP for the construction and operation of an electrical substation.
Great, thank you. Introduction, please.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Mr. McDaniel.
Good evening. This agreement proposes to transfer 2.743 acres to American Electric Power, Ohio Power Company, for the purpose of constructing, at its expense, a new electric substation to be known as the Amlin Substation. As council may recall, the city previously transferred property in the same general area for the same purpose in 2008. This was part of the city's 100 acres it currently owns at the corner of Houchard Road and Post Road. However, due to the lack of activity, the construction of the substation was not actually executed. More recently, activity in the immediate area, also referred to as the West Innovation District, has increased. The West Innovation District, or the area generally west of US 33 and out to Houchard Road, is one of Ohio's 13 job-ready sites. As a result of the increased activity, AEP is now committing to the construction of a nearly $19 million $19 million worth of improvements. These improvements include both the Amlin substation and a new 138 kV transmission line. Currently, there is about 2 megawatts of capacity available in the immediate area. With the addition of the Amlin substation alone, this will increase to 15 megawatts. And with the addition of a new 138 kV power line to serve the substation, the capacity will reach 300 megawatts. The 2008 agreement originally allocated 3.68 acres, which is generally outlined. It was in your staff report. It's outlined up here. It's kind of hard to see in black, which is generally this box here. The total acreage, or the agreement will allocate an additional 4.862 acres for the footprint of the substation and additional 0.33 acres for an access easement. So what we needed to do was shift the substation to the south. We did this after we learned about how to lay down the substation. We did this in response to some possible projects that were actually looking at the area. And at the end of the day, really probably better off that they didn't go ahead and build it, because the footprint that's being proposed now, I think, is much more suited for the way we rezone this property and for the uses that we anticipate out there and in the general area. In the blue shows the 0.33 acres for the access easement that will generally go along the existing transmission line there. So at the end of the day, the total acreage is 5.188 acres, and that's 1.51 acres more than what Council approved in 2008. Given the more recent interest in the acreage out at Hoochard Road and the types of related uses as a result of the zoning, the activity already announced that's underway, such as the Ohio University project, the Nestle expansion, Dublin Springs Hospital, and the potential for other development, the substation size of AEP is now appropriately sized, we believe. I also want to mention that this will create an opportunity for redundant circuitry once the substation is built. And we will probably be coming back to council at a later date to ask you to authorize easements for additional circuitry that would go along the sort of the outside edge of Dari Fields and then work its way east over towards Cosgray Road and into what we call the West Innovation District. We think that high quality power, high capacity, and the redundant power being made available by this proposed substation and additional transmission line will serve the West Innovation District well and absolutely increase its competitiveness. So I know Council has some familiarity with this process and this project since you acted on it previously and you were all on Council at the time. So be happy to entertain any questions as it relates to this specific project.
So, I have one. Why was the parcel centrally located in our land mass? Is that because of the way the lines come down?
It has something to do with that. We generally wanted to keep it a little bit away from the park, and we wanted to bury it kind of back into the site off of 161. You might recall when we first engaged this process, they were actually looking for a substation site up along State Route 161. We didn't really want the substation up on State Route 161. We kind of wanted it buried into the site, but we didn't want it right up against the park either. So that's why we are looking at the location that we're proposing.
The access easement to the area, there was no way to work it off the U-shaped road in there?
No, not at this time, and this is really going to serve as a temporary access because once this site starts to develop, we would actually anticipate a road network coming into the site, and we would propose, more than likely propose an access coming off of the, coming from the substation, generally in this area, and out to a road that will probably come off 161 and go back out to Hoochard Road. But that's, you know, that's only a concept right now until we have an actual project come forward. We don't know exactly how the road design will look.
At that time, will we have the right to reclaim our right-of-way?
The easement?
Yeah.
Yes.
That will go back to the city.
Sure seems like it'd be a lot less expensive to come in through Fishel. You could negotiate an arrangement to get to that site. A lot less road frontage and road mileage, I guess. footage?
I think it'll just be difficult to get that access from those landowners, to be honest with you.
Can you define what circuitry is for me?
Yes, that's the distribution lines that would,
I know what kind of distribution lines.
I don't know the exact, are you talking about the voltage or?
Are they going to be the big marching across the country lines?
No. Actually, the existing transmission line that runs generally right along here, those towers will hold the new 138 kV line that's being proposed. It's going to be coming from the south, generally from the Hilliard area. When they go to do distribution, that'll be underground distribution, like you have in your residential areas and commercial areas, and that will go along the border, like something like that, and then it'll go out to Cosgray and out into the area to the east.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, well, we'll have the second reading on December 10th then. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
Ordinance 70-12.
Authorizing appropriation of a 0.113 acres with 0.06 acres present road occupied, more or less feasible interest from the Asman Land Company Limited.
Thank you. Dana, you going to do this one too?
Sure, yeah. I don't have a graphic available to put up on the screen. You've seen it previously. It's in your staff report.
We need an introduction.
But this is the next and final step towards an appropriation of this property, the 0.113 acres. And as I committed to council previously, we'll continue to work with Osmond Land Company in obtaining this property. In fact, I traded phone calls with him today, and our legal staff spoke to their attorney today, and I have every reason to believe that we'll get this done, but I think it's prudent and important that the city move forward with this legislation in case we can't come to a final agreement.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Okay, we will have the second reading of that on December 10th. And then moving on to our resolutions. Resolution 65-12.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an indefeasible right-to-use agreement with Nestle USA, Inc. to utilize fibers within and connect two Dublin facilities.
Introduction, please.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, good evening again. This resolution, if passed, would enable the city manager to enter into an indefeasible right to use with Nestle USA, Inc. For them to use the city's Dublin fiber. As you know, Nestle, located on Eiderman Road, intends to expand its existing facility and have in fact hired additional employees over the last 18 months. And in order to create room for their existing facility during their expansion, they've relocated some of these employees to the southeast corner of Shire Rings and Avery Road. By using Dublin, the company can establish a virtual campus to sustain operations during their expansion. And Nestle's will be required to pay and arrange for all expenses related to laterally building out to Dublin and also for any equipment and lighting of the fiber optics. Now the intent of this agreement is to allow Nestle to use the fiber for a period of 2 years with a third optional year if they need it. And this is similar to what the city did with IGS Energy. You might recall when they were under construction and relocating from their existing facility to the new facility, we did an agreement with IGS Energy in the same fashion to help facilitate that move. So at the end of the usage period, the Dublin fiber would be available for other use because it reverts back to the city after it's been used. So staff recommends the adoption of this resolution. I also have Greg Dunn here as well if you have any questions about the agreement.
Dana, what do you realistically foresee happening when this particular agreement expires, or should you say, or can you say?
What do you mean
I
realistically?
mean, practically speaking, I mean, you know, they're going to use it for 2 years. I mean, it seems impractical to me that they're going to not need it, you know, for additional time.
Yeah, I would think we would talk to them about the possibility of a lease if they wanted to continue to use it. We're also taking a look at, and I mentioned this in the budget meeting the other night, that we're looking at ways to multiplex over the fiber optics and be able to try to extend better opportunities for more companies to access the same leased fiber. So maybe those costs on a monthly basis can come down. So if we could leverage, you know, more people over the same fiber optics, and I think our companies could benefit this way. But I think this is a good interim solution for them, so they have this sort of virtual campus while they're in the process of expanding.
But there's the potential for some future income here.
I think so, yes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Maurer?
I have 3 points. First, I like to have a visual picture of abstractions. Is Nestle here the company that used to sell me cocoa? Is it foodstuffs? Okay, thanks. Second, this is a technological question, I think. Under summary, paragraph 1, I don't waste time sending them. I'm interested in 4 words there. Access to cloud computing. What does that mean?
Well, cloud computing is where you can locate your computer servers and the equipment that houses your data capacity in another facility. And you can share that access with other companies so that you're not hosting and having to manage that within your business. So actually, those servers that run your company's computer system can be housed off-site.
Yeah, it's not a meteorological term, it's
No.
a metaphor.
Right.
Okay, got it. Third, there are references to Dublin's ownership of optical system throughout the city of Dublin and throughout Greater Columbus. Does Dublin own the fiber optic patterns which are in the city of Columbus?
Yes. Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, the city, I don't have a map of the entire
Yeah.
system tonight, but the city owns over 120 miles of fiber optic system, which runs throughout central Ohio.
Do they collect rent on that?
I'm sorry?
Do they collect rent on that?
Some portions of it, yes.
Okay, thank you. And that was it. Thanks.
Thank you. If there's no other comment or questions, Ann, if you call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Salee.
Yes?
Mrs. Boring. Mr. Keenan. Ms. Janice Zerker. Mr. Reiner.
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider.
Yes. Thank you. Resolution 68-12.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into agreement with Time Warner Cable Midwest LLC, amending a previously executed lease agreement dated April 23, 1997, to allow Time Warner Cable Midwest LLC to install and maintain fibers within the Dublin facilities, to expand Time Warner Cable Midwest LLC's existing facilities and accept certain quitclaim bills of sale.
Thank you. Introduction, please.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
it's your night.
Yes. This agreement would authorize Time Warner Cable Midwest LLC to expand their existing communications hub, which some of you may be familiar with, located along Post Road. The existing Time Warner Communications hub lease along Post Road was authorized by City Council in April of 1997, and I'm sad to say that Greg Dunn and I brought that to council back then. And I was going to say we had some of our students here tonight. They probably weren't even born in 1997, but that's when we started this fiber optics that we now know as Dublink was originally started as part of that project. So the lease terminates in April 2027. We've had intermittent conversations with Time Warner over the past year regarding this project, and Time Warner's been before Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the proposed expansion and obtained their approval in September of 2011. I included the presentation that staff did for Planning and Zoning Commission in your staff report. I've got it here if you need to see it. But it shows the concept of their expansion. It shows the conditions that Planning and Zoning Commission put on them, which they agreed to. In 1997, City Council approved the existing lease in exchange for the construction of a coax cable system then used by the city to interconnect city facilities. Similarly, Time Warner offers to construct new fiber optic system that will connect the city's north and south pools to the Dublink system. And there was also a map in your report. I have it here if you need it. For the reasons listed in my report to council, staff is of the opinion that the exchange of the fiber infrastructure and the additional lease is fair. Staff recommends council pass this resolution. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Dean,
Comments?
are these, in the expansion, are they existing areas they're expanding, or are they going to be building more? I mean, are they going to be digging in the ground?
You mean for the building?
No, for
I'm
the
s-
expansion of the lines you have.
Oh, for the
these-
fiber optics?
Yes.
The portion along Warner Temple from the South Pool over to the Emerald Parkway where it would intersect Dublink would be a buried line, directionally bored buried line. And then the line going north, generally just out in front of the city hall here, up Kaufman Road, and then over to the North Pool, that's a combination of underground and aerial.
And what is the disruption? Are they going to be like shooting it underneath? We've had some concerns about the disruption of the landscaping and
Right.
what is that going to entail?
Yeah, I don't really foresee much in the way of disruption of landscaping, especially along Warner Temple. It's a pretty open way to go down through there. And in that, a good portion of this will be aerial on existing poles, not installing any new ones. I don't see that there'd be much disruption there either.
Okay. But we will, if there is, we'll have it returned to...
Oh, absolutely, yes. Restoration will
before.
be part of it.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. And if you call for the vote, please.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider?
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Salee?
Yes.
Mrs. Waring?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to that part of our agenda described as other, tree replacement fee waiver request involving Master Maintenance, Inc., 6200 Wilcox Road. Mr. Smith, do you care to comment?
Yes, Your Honor, as most of council knows, I've been speaking with a number of you. I've been working with Mr. Klein and his client on two things. One, his fee request and what might work out as a reasonable alternative, and secondly, to get this project finished. Mr. Klein has sent a letter in, which I agree with, that we hear this on the 10th. We have been in touch with AEP, we, the city, myself, to get some assistance to them. Their lines have to be shut off for half a day so they can finish the south side of the building. And there was also some material out there that's going to be removed, so that when they're here on the 10th, hopefully everything will be done. And so with that in mind, I would ask council to, and there's a written request that's been sent to the city by Mr. Klein, that this matter be heard on the 10th of December. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
No, I would move that we hear this hearing on the 10th of December.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And if you call for the vote?
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Mrs. Waring? Yes. Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Salee?
Yes?
Great, thank you. And we have a right-of-way encroachment request by the Vesha Law Firm. Mr. Langworthy.
Dana's always a hard act to follow, but this is for the, at 38 South High Street, right-of-way encroachment request for the Vesha Law Firm. Property is located at the corner of Spring Hill and South High Street. This request has been through the Planning Commission, or the, excuse me, the Administrative Review Team and the Architectural Review Board, and the site plan has been approved. The signpost is in the right-of-way is located by the arrow, and this is the approved site plan on the screen. This is essentially what the post, it's kind of hard to see, it's a little red post there. It's been there for some time. Part of this is engineering's desire to get a lot of these encroachments documented and encroachment easements placed for them, so we have a better record of where they are and how they got there. And with that, Planning Commission, or got Planning Commission on my mind tonight, the planning and engineering are recommending approval.
Any questions or comments?
I'm just hoping it's going to be a more attractive sign than the former business was.
Steve?
And the buildings, they're doing a very nice
Yeah,
job on
they
the
are.
building too. It's going to be a spectacular looking building, I think.
I'm just curious why it's a good idea to have these signs in our tree lawns like this, from a planning standpoint.
Well, we don't do that now, but where this started from, it just, the post has been there. We actually couldn't find any record of it ever having been placed there. So we don't even know when it started, but it's been there for some number of years. We do have a requirement that if they were to replace the signpost, in other words, if they were to yank it out of the ground, they could not replace it in the same location. They'd have to bring it into a conforming spot.
So they'd have to put it back closer to the building.
Correct.
I noticed that the ARB has approved it, and they've approved it with the consideration of the materials used.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Is anybody from the official law firm here that would like to comment? You want to come forward, please? Good evening. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Sean Bogenreif, and I am 1443 Snowmass Road. That's where I live. I'm here representing Vesha Law Firm. The signpost is shown, and it's an existing sign that, you know, the client would like to keep, and, you know, their thought is that they're doing a lot of improvements to the building to kind of bring it back into the character of the neighborhood, and so they would, you know, like to keep the signpost. And, you know, we've already presented that to the Architectural Review Board. They reviewed the sign, and the administrative review team has reviewed it too. So.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And if you call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Salee,
Yes.
Mayor Lechleiter,
Yes.
Mr. Reiner,
Yes.
Mr. Keenan.
Yes.
Mrs. Waring.
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker.
Yes.
Great, thank you. And we will now have an update on House Bill 601. Faith Gibson, Director of Taxation. Take it away.
I'm just going to hit some of the highlights that, because a lot of the acronyms and a lot of the things that are in this bill are not readily identifiable. We do know that sponsor testimony will be heard on this bill on the 28th. We have also been working with the Ohio Society in the past week to kind of work back together to where we were, to come to an agreement so that we can work hard in 2013. After, we're hoping the sponsor testimony will be the only testimony on this bill this year, and then it will die. And then we're hoping to redo in January to start back and work and get back to where we were a few months ago. The most egregious areas for us are the ones that we look at that would be actually detrimental to our revenue are the changes in estimated and declaration filing days and payment dates, which would move payments that we now receive in December, move them into January of the following year. And then it would take partnerships and S-corp payments that would only be due once a year. So the estimated payments that we currently receive 4 times a year, we would receive them 1 time at filing time, which would be a loss of revenue to us. One of the other big considerations is in this bill, it's included domicile or residency is the bright line test from the state, which is 183 contact points, which for us in this area would eliminate a significant number of our corporate residents, our corporate employees who travel extensively would not end up paying tax to Dublin at all. It would go back to their city of residence, or it would not go back to the place of work. And that would be a huge loss of revenue for us. Also, the pass-through entity treatment, it doesn't discuss at all non-equity partners, and it does not offset gains and losses, so, and how that would be done. So you could actually look at the same loss being used multiple times. So that would definitely be a loss of revenue, as they eliminate the throwback rule for any sales of any corporations, which would eliminate the sales cited where the title transfers, and it would then go to where the destination. And the biggest impact to those would be the accountants, the attorneys, and the architects. So they would go from, like, a firm that's operating in Dublin would go from filing 1 return and paying the tax to Dublin. They would be having to track where their clients were and how much the revenue would be, and then those were the returns that would have to be paid to those cities. So in the interest of simplicity and uniformity, which is what this whole thing started out as, is kind of veered off course a bit. The assessment procedure that they've designed also, there are several areas where we feel like they've actually tried to get into local government management, and the assessment procedure is one of them. And they decided that they would tell us how we would be able to do assessments and if we could, which is a way we normally, or we do audit every return, and so this is kind of a back tactic to avoid that. Anytime you would change any kind of a return, you would have to send a certified mail letter to the taxpayer telling them what you did and why you did it. So now, if you reduce a refund for whatever reason, we just send them a letter with the check, and we normally have no questions ever asked. The big thing would be impact for us is we have a significant number of refunds that are requested every year. Of the 0.5% that our residents pay to Columbus, they want us to refund that 0.5%. We would then have to notify them by certified mail and return receipt that they actually received our notice that said, you know, you're not entitled to a refund. So it also decides to set business hours, and that also says that you have to have a resolution officer in your division. So they're trying to put, not only tell us who is going to be in our office, but what they're going to actually do. So the other thing is they also cities would be liable for damages and attorney fees. If someone files an appeal and the city loses the appeal, then they would be responsible for those attorney fees. The other thing is it would be very easy to change this bill to central collection by the state by simply changing the word tax administrator to tax commissioner. But like I said, we're still working, and I know a lot of cities are doing resolutions. Marilee heard this last week at Morpsey. At this time, since hopefully this bill is only going to be heard as sponsor and then it's going to die, I would suggest that we would wait until we see a real bill in 2013, because no matter what happens, there will be parts of it that we won't like. But as long as we can reduce the amount of revenue loss, then we can at least get to some sort of uniformity and better compliance.
Is there any way for us to estimate if the legislation was passed in its current version, what that would mean to us, the bottom line?
Well, we have been trying to do that, and the only thing is we're kind of guarded about doing that, because whenever a number is thrown out, everybody seems to remember that number. And for instance, when we first started discussing net operating loss carryforwards, which we don't have, but would go to 5 years, the first number that the city of Dayton threw out was $10 million. That number has significantly been reduced to at least $2 million. And that's the only thing everybody remembers now. So the one thing that we've been cautioning everybody about, and one of the reasons that I've held off doing numbers, is the fact that we need to learn to do them together so that we are all comparing the same thing, so that when the numbers are out there, we know. I mean, I have a good idea. It's just hard when you push them out there that then it becomes written and it's in stone. But we know that the estimated payments alone, that would shift from one year to another anywhere between $1 to $3 million just in that shift.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I appreciate, you know, the good intentions of the sponsors, you know, but by the same token, you know, in this era when, you know, a lot of communities, you know, have been impacted, ours included, you know, by the loss of, you know, local government funds and so forth. I mean, give us a break.
Well, this bill was to take effect in January of 2014, which is also the year that the estate tax and the local government fund will be hit hard, and some cities will have a really difficult time. I mean, not that we won't have a difficult time, but some of them will have a significantly difficult time. So it's just something that we need to continue to work with to get a bill that does provide what businesses are saying, Although just last week, Site Selection Magazine said Ohio was number 2, which is one of their big caveats. It's why we need to do so much change, is because we're not competitive when you add in our municipal tax. The one thing that I think that gets a little bit confused is when you're looking from another state and you're looking at local tax burden. For us here in Ohio, when you talk about the local tax burden, it's primarily the schools. But they use that to carve in and put the unique tax as being the biggest burden.
I just wonder if we don't have municipal tax and we don't have state tax, how are we supposed to run our government and provide services to our citizens? I mean, I don't think anybody wants to pay more tax than they have to, but at some point, you know, the buck has to stop somewhere. It's just like school funding. You know, education's expensive. Somebody has to fund it, and when they cut it at the state level, everybody's happy, but then they get their property tax bill and the school districts have to go for levies, and, you know, it comes from somewhere. I appreciate you, Faye. I know you're working hard.
Thank you. Yes, we are.
I assume the sponsors understand, you know, the school component here.
They do, but I mean, right now, you know, you also have to look at the fact that, to me, you know, the coalition has 14 members that are pressing the legislators to do something. So, you know, they feel inclined, and that's the Ohio Society, it's NFIB, which is the small businesses. You have the Bar Association, you have the Medical Association. They have 14 different people, different groups that are pressing them to do something, and they are all friends of the legislators. And so they want, you know, they need things done to help them do business in Ohio.
Well, in the groups you name, I'm certain, you know, have active lobbyists, so anyway.
That's why
Okay,
we
then.
need to use ours more effectively.
Excuse me?
That's why we need to use our lobbyists more effectively.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you all know, just from past comments made, Mayor Lee hears this at Morpsey, how active Faye is in this process, and she is instrumental in keeping this on task and on target and protecting and looking out for the interest of municipalities. So we're very lucky to have Faye's passion for this issue.
Thank you.
Tim, one thing that I appreciate what you're saying about not currently doing a resolution or a letter, but I'm wondering if we might not empower city manager and Faye to move forward if necessary, because we only have one meeting left this year. And while there is reason to believe that this is going to not be heard, we also didn't think it was ever going to be introduced. So, and the 14 groups have contribute substantially to these discussions in a number of ways. So I would recommend that we empower the city manager to move forward in communicating with our representatives and senators, if necessary, about issues that are important to, you know, our community. That's a motion.
Any other discussion?
Well, we're hopeful, since it's going to be heard on the 28th, and they have said there will be 3 days then in the first week of December, and they've said that the other scheduled dates will not be called back. So hopefully, if we get through the first week of December, it'll die down. And then also, I have asked Representative Grossman to have another IP meeting, interested party meeting in December, to pull the groups back together and kind of get the animosity and the groups back together and on task.
You know, I would think between Representative Grossman and Representative Duffy, both have served on local city councils and understand the importance of this issue from our perspective as a public entity. So I just urge you to use those resources.
This is Representative Grossman's bill.
Grossman's legislation.
Well, it is her legislation.
Yeah.
And her
Well, since she
sponsor,
turned
Former
on us,
mayor.
didn't she?
Right.
Yes, she did.
Yes. And the other thing that is a little bit of interest too is, you know, when we've, in the past, when we've had issues with municipal tax and it's a city issue and no one else wants to come in with us, but now that the JEDs and the JEDZs are involved, townships have an issue and have an interest in this issue as well.
The executive director of OTA and those folks are engaged?
We have spoken to them.
And if you call for the vote, please.
Yes. Mayor Lucklider?
Yes.
Mrs. Waring?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan? Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Nancy Zerker?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Salee?
Yes.
Yes, thanks, Faye, and, you know, we don't want to get caught unawares. We appreciate, you know, I mean, hopefully nothing happens before the end of the year, but, and as you have, if you would continue to keep us updated regarding, you know, I mean, if an interested party meeting gets scheduled or anything, because, you know, obviously this is of great importance to all of us. We appreciate it.
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks. And if you have any other suggestions for us, what we might do individually, you know, as council members, you know, be it contacting, you know, our local representatives and so forth.
And we have talked with Jim Hughes, we've talked with Duffy. I mean, we've talked to a significant number of them. The city of Dublin has. So we have talked with them, and they understand where we're coming from, and they also understand that we're looking out for all cities and municipalities, not just Dublin, because some of the smaller cities and villages could be devastated by this bill.
But I mean, I don't think that's to say that we're not willing, that we wouldn't consider, you know, some kind of compromise. I mean, you know, we're not completely opposed to change. I mean.
No, and I didn't give you any of the, I mean, there's a list of things that we did agree to.
Right.
That we have, you know, actually the 5-year NOL, we have agreed, I mean, we would, we have asked, and it was included in this bill, that it would be phased in. So if it's phased in over 5 years, then basically Dublin would have 6 years before the full 100% of the loss carry forward would be allowed. So we have agreed on, there's a whole list of them. It's just there's a lot of things in this bill that has no place in the bill, and a lot of things that are negatively impacting to all of us.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. Marcia?
Just a couple updates on projects that were asked about at the last council meeting. The Cosgray Road Shower Rings Roundabout is scheduled to open this Wednesday morning, November 21st. We've been working with AEP on getting the lighting erected, so we didn't want to open it up without the lights in place. So we should be ready to go Wednesday morning. And Dublin Road South, the shared use path, the culvert is complete, and the path we are working on, based upon getting the ditch enclosed. Then there were some issues with the height of where the path was going to meet in the yard. So basically last week they added additional gravel so that it'll be a more seamless transition into the yards. And right now we're looking that the traffic will be opened a week from Wednesday, November 28th. And we will be corresponding or communicating with the residents so that they know the update on that.
Right.
And that's it.
Thank you. Time for roundtable, Mike.
Yeah, I just have one item. Paul Hammersmith and Angel Muma and Tammy Noble Flading, we all attended the annual LUC meeting. I believe it was my 10th one, Paul. Yeah, thank you. This was the by far the best menu, though. Der Dutchman catered it, so it was well worth the trip.
Where was it, Mike?
It was at the offices, was it the county, Paul? The county offices in Marysville. It was a nice facility. We heard from Chris Schmenk, who is a former Marysville mayor, and actually she's the current director of the Ohio Department of Development. And Paul, were you re-elected or reappointed or trustee?
Yeah, vice president.
Vice president. So that's a pretty good representation. That is obviously Logan Union, Champaign County Regional Planning Authority. So it's a big group. I would suspect there's well over 100 local officials there. Townships, cities, villages, counties. We actually sat with the commissioner, and Director Schmenk came over and spent some time with us, and we talked about the I-270-33 interchange and some of the things that were going on there. So that was pretty much it. It was a good outing, and there were a number of other presentations. One noteworthy one was the was it Bell Fountain, I believe. Their clock tower on their courthouse had blown off in the storm that we had. And I think they had, what did they tell us, well over a couple $1 million just to replace that thing. It was an amazing presentation. They kind of went through the slides of everything, and the cost to redo those older buildings is quite extensive. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Mike. John?
I have a letter here from Mike Teets that he wanted me to share with you, and this is the feedback from the cyclocross event. This was the state championship that was held in Dublin for 2 days, and he wanted me to tell you the improvements to the Dairy Cycle Park area were extremely well received. As we had discussed during the bike task force, Cincinnati and Louisville were putting in cyclocross specific parks. The recent addition of the stair climb really took most of the racers by surprise, especially since the city is contributing. Had no idea that Fred had done all this. And Westerville resident, Vice President J.P. Morgan said, Dublin has the best city planning by far. They're really doing everything right. A Gahanna resident stated, I am raising my 2 grandchildren. I never considered living in Dublin, but as I see the support from the city and the great programs offered, we are now looking to relocate here before the kids start school. An out-of-towner came, who rode in the race, and said, I have ridden the Cincinnati Park. This is already a more challenging course, and great to see so much community support from the city. Heard many times from riders, we just love it here in Dublin. I wanted to thank the City Council again for being so helpful. They're going above and beyond our request to give an amazing race venue. Yes, glad to hear a great race was held, and many, many thanks to the City of Dublin. Definitely looking forward to next week. I guess next week there must be another race. Is that correct, Fred? Yep. And that would be on the 25th on Sunday from 12 to 3. These are relatively small races compared to the championships, but they are building a great reputation around the area. Seems like this is doing exactly as what we wanted to create, a reputation for the city, especially in the 20 to 30-year-old demographics. So this is a letter from Mike Teets, and he sent it over to Michelle and Fred and a number of us. So he wanted me to share that with you. And then the other item.
Excuse me, John, but when was that event held?
This weekend, right? Past weekend.
So how regularly are these things being scheduled or programmed? You know, I went to one last year. I think it was the inaugural.
State event, yeah, for us.
It was here in Kaufman, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this summer we had four short track races and then these 2 cyclocross races this fall. So out at Dari, you know, given all the other activities to, you know, scheduling is always kind of an issue out there. But anyways, last weekend was a cyclocross. This coming weekend's a cyclocross out there. So
These are just, I don't know whether it's fair to call them ordinary meets or something like that, or?
They're more like regional type of, I mean, they're races. I mean, there's, you know.
Who organizes them?
Cap City is the name of the organization, and there's representations. Riders belong to various cycling clubs, but Cap City is the local club that hosts the race, I guess, is the best way of saying that. So, but then, like I said, when you look at the race results, you'll see, you know, riders with affiliations from a whole myriad of various cycling clubs. So, sure.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
No, it's a lot. That's really a fun group.
Yeah, a most appreciative group too.
Yeah,
so,
and I've ridden with these guys, and they do have a lot of fun, and they really appreciate what we've been doing. And I just didn't know he had gone that far to do all these things. And you know, it hardly got any press. I was shocked for the state championships.
Yeah, I mean, John, the stair climb just got done like 3 weeks ago or something, so it's not like we've had this. And we altered the course a few weeks ago too. So, you know, easing into all of this. So we'll see what 2013 brings as far as announcements and continued use out there.
So can our residents go out and ride this?
Yeah, you can
Oh,
go out
it's-
there. Yeah, I mean, it's open. It's, well, when you should go out there, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see it most
Not on my
apparent-
bike, but.
Apparently, if on the Hootchard Road entry drive,
Uh-huh.
we've taken some kind of residual land out there and just made use of it for this purpose. Then during the cyclocross events, they'll use some of the asphalt out there, but the short track is just all off-road. So, and given, you know, the time of year, you know, like the Hootchard Road Drive, you know, we don't have the soccerites and the baseball people out there, so it's a kind of a nice complementary use of the park without causing too much conflict and congestion out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyways, you can see the course and the physical changes to the park most readily along the Hootchard Drive there, and you'll definitely see the stair climb.
Hmm.
You know, what's wonderful about this, you know, we've had, I was talking to the bicycle ambassadors, and they're saying, you know, we're having trouble with our young people riding their bikes on these 100 miles of bicycle trails which we've constructed. It's a little bit uncool. They still want to drive the car to school, and they think it's not that cool to ride a bicycle to school. And but they have to go out and see one of these races if they want to really get into a sort of macho-mismo contact sport. There's people out there with cowbells, there's wrecks, there's bruises all over these people. They carry their bikes and leap over steeple chases with them. It's a timed race. It's really interesting. It's you have to get on your computer and type in cyclocross to see what this really looks like. And so for those faint of heart who think that riding a bicycle is sort of a wimpy way of transportation, they should probably view this, and I think it could change the entire culture of some of our youth. And they should get involved in this, because like you said, Fred, it's open for anybody, senior citizens, kids that are 12, 13 years old are out there.
Well, we saw it in the Olympics, didn't we?
I don't know, do they have
I don't know.
cyclocross?
Well, a version of it on a crazy course. They started on a ramp, and yeah, there were lots of good crashes.
Most like out there, that your tires really by design don't really leave the ground, so there's not like jumps like you would in a BMX course or anything.
Gotcha.
And as John was saying, these are typically you're racing the clock on these things, and there's various classes. So so it isn't just an open. There's, you know, whatever A, B, and C, and gender-specific classes and things like that.
It's really rather brutal. They run through ravines. I've seen them set fire to gullies where you drive your bicycle through fire, through creeks.
We're not
hills.
doing that. We're not going to involve any flammable liquids out there at Dari.
So anyway, the other item I have, Mayor, is I just want to thank Paul and again the City Council and the Engineering Department, because the first phase of the Concord bicycle multi-use path has been completed, and that's always been one of those worrisome things for us, because it was a road that was 2-lane with about a 6-inch berm, and it was a road that I've seen people pushing strollers on it, which I thought was crazy, but also it was the road that children used to get to Zambezi and to the zoo. And it had a severe slope on the right side and a ditch on the other side, and there really was no way a pedestrian or even a bicycle person could move up and down that road with any kind of safety. So the city concluded the first phase of the bicycle trail, or multi-use trail, and it's really wonderful. And you have to, and I also want to thank all the dozens of homeowners who are located along the back of that trail. Because, you know, the old motto, not in my backyard, I only had one comment on that whole thing, and the lady said, well, you know, you cut down some of the trees, which was on our property, by the way, common ground. And, you know, everybody really embraced this thing and really backed it. And, you know, kudos to those people for working with the government and not being on the side of battling with us over something that's really a major improvement, and seeing the bigger picture. the common good of the project. So just want to thank them too for participating at that level. So nice job, very well executed, nice contours, good flow, well drained. So good job here, Paul. That's it.
Thanks, John. Mayor Lee?
You have at your desk, I think everybody got them, are the bed tax applications. Our meeting is next Monday, and I think it's at 6 o'clock, right? 6 o'clock. And as you know, after last year, or last time, we asked Faye to look at ones that we had been doing, were routine city requirements, and to go ahead with administrative review. So you'll see that there were several that will not be coming in to speak to us and have been recommended for administrative approval to us. And if anybody's not going to be at that meeting, if you'd let me know, I'd appreciate it. I really thought this beautifying your neighborhood grant update was excellent, and I really appreciated the work that Charlotte and others put into it. With the pictures particularly were very helpful. And, I know we increased the amount of money that we were dedicating, but when you look at the results for $32,000, I mean, it is phenomenal, really. And one of the most important features, of course, is it's also additional money that they're putting in, as well as the volunteer work that to do the work. And I hope that I think somebody told me that we did away with the beautification awards or something that we used to do, which is fine. But I'm hoping that there is some kind of homeowner association recognition, and some way that we can show also to other homeowners association things that are possible, because I think this is a phenomenal result of a very minimal investment by the city government, really, but a lot of investment by homeowners and the people that live in those areas. Last week, I chaired the Morpsey Regional Policy Group, and Faye did a presentation at that, along with a woman that is on the Columbus City staff, who's also an expert in this area. And as Faye has indicated, there's great concern by everybody regarding this bill. And we're very fortunate to have one of the experts really in the state working here in Dublin and keeping us informed. But I think we want to really stay on top of this, which we know we're doing. And we also had a great presentation of brownfield redevelopment, which isn't really something that we get much involved in, but there's new rules about the brownfield redevelopment. So if we do have reason to be involved in that, we want to make sure that we understand what the new rules are. The Morpsey interviews for the finalists are going to be taking place by the search committee on the 28th and 29th, and there will be a public reception then on December 5th at Morpsey from, I think it's 5 to 7:30. So if anybody has an interest in going to that, I can get the invitation to Ann. Could share that with everybody. I think you probably got one too, Marcia. I think I saw it today. And that's all.
Thank you. Kathy?
Well, Mary Lee and I have the same papers in front of us, I see. Allison, would you care to comment at all? This looks like a pretty nice honor for this Greater Columbus Irish Culture Foundation to honor our Dublin Irish Festival founders. And is that the program for that night, just for our founders?
Yes, they've honored other Irish organizations or individuals in the past. And so the choice was made this year with the 25th anniversary to honor the founders of the festival for their continuing involvement with the festival and also starting the festival itself.
Okay, looks very nice. I hope other council members noticed it, as we are invited, obviously. Thank you. I also noticed the Beautify community, your neighborhood grants. Again, I will also like to say thank you to Charlotte. The one thing that really, among agreeing with Mayor Lee's comments, where it demonstrates how the citizens are proud to be in their community and how they want it to continue looking pretty nice. And I think when you have a community that much that cares about the way they present themselves, that's the most positive thing you can say about the community. And Mr. Steve Langworthy, I was trying to call you today. There is a trailer at the, or like a big tank parked at the end of Emerald Parkway and Riverside. Is that for our people to be using to water some things? Pool.com or something, yeah.
I heard that.
Actually, I believe that's Ron Burns' project related
Okay.
to power washing the Emerald Parkway Bridge over the Scioto and then a ceiling.
Okay.
They'll be
How
sealing the
long will it
concrete
be?
there. Probably, I don't know, I can't remember. Couple weeks.
Couple
I
weeks?
think it's going to be a couple weeks, yeah.
Yeah, it's not very attractive. I have a couple of, before the budget comes back to us next week, I have a couple items that I kind of lost because we had like 4 different meetings on the same night, and we got fairly involved in the last discussion we had with the department. And I talked to Angel about this. The In Touch that we do on a regular basis in the Dublin paper, I understand that we're cutting the budget on that. Is that correct?
Well, we're looking at what our options are for utilizing how we get information out. And what we're looking at on that is not cutting, it's re-looking at how that's used, and we're reducing it from an every week to, is it every other week? Or as an as-needed basis.
As needed?
As needed.
I would like us to reconsider that because on this community survey, it shows that the people get their news a lot from the Dublin Villager and that they read it on a constant basis. For me, when I go through the Villager or whatever it's called now, this ad sticks, or this information sticks out, and it talks about meetings and upcoming events. And there's quite a few people who just don't go on the city site to look at different information, things like this. Christmas tree lighting or things like that. I think it's very attractive, and I think it gets the attention of quite a few people. And from the community survey, if you look at that, you'll see that a large portion of the community uses that. And so I would like us to consider not cutting that on that area. Then the,
Well, on that one, as far as making any changes, if we could get a motion of council, then we'll have the information as to what needs to be added if that's council's direction.
Well, I do agree with Kathy that we have to be careful not to, that we need to use all the vehicles that are available to communicate with the public, because people do receive information differently, and not everybody's into the high-tech way of getting it. And, you know, the paper is reduced anyway, and I think that, I know a lot of people that actually look forward to getting the paper, and there's areas like Ballantrae and all who don't get the paper. And they wish they did, because they have to go on a site in order to get information about Dublin, because I guess they get Hilliard information because they're in the school district there.
so what type of motion would you like?
Well, if you want to add that to the budget, if you could just make that motion, and then we'll identify what that increase is.
Okay.
Once because I don't know what it is.
Okay. Well, I wonder what the decrease was. Maybe that would be.
No.
No, never mind, we won't go there.
I don't have that specific
Well,
number.
based on the information that we have garnered from the survey, so that 77% look for their preferred way to receive information, I will make a motion that we maintain the In Touch portion of notifying or letting people know what's going on about Dublin.
At the level of frequency we're doing.
The frequency being every week, with every edition on that.
Is there a second?
Second.
And if you call for the vote?
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Salee.
Yes.
Mrs. Waring.
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan. And Ms. Janice Zerker.
Yes.
Mayor Lee, to your point about Ballantrae receiving the Hilliard paper, I know Amy brought this up a while ago when we worked with them, and so if that has changed again, we will work with circulation. That was a request that council made even for the residents, so we'll follow up again. We thought that had been taken care of.
And the other issue, because 2 years ago, I kind of I felt I wimped out. It has to do with the budget also, and it has to do with recognition of the staff. I know this year we said we would increase the staff's salary by 3%, but that's not across the board. At 1 year, we froze the staff's salary, and meanwhile, the unions were getting increases and step increases. And I believe the staff has made an extreme effort in helping us reduce costs by reducing the number of staff, by reducing the overtime wages, by reducing the health costs. Meanwhile, our health coverage has been more costly for them. They have shared employees between departments, and when a position becomes open, they analyze that position and really try to figure out whether they need it. The problem I have with the, not that I don't have a problem with the salary increase, but that's not, it doesn't affect everyone in the same percentage-wise. It's kind of dependent on the department. So at the time we had this salary freeze, Marcia came in with a plan to somehow not add it to the salary. In other words, we wouldn't increase it by a certain percentage, but come in and how would you express that?
Well, at that time, we were looking at doing lump sum adjustments where there would be payments made, whether it was a percentage or a percentage with a floor and a cap on it, to look at those options so that it didn't impact going forward base salary.
Well, as an acknowledgement and appreciation of staff's extreme efforts in what they've done, I would like to suggest that we have Angel bring back some kind of lump sum appreciation, not to a great amount, but somehow acknowledge what the staff has done and the reduction in the costs that they have provided for us.
And Kathy, just for clarification, the 3% was an adjustment or an allocation in the budget, but the actual salary adjustments that we're recommending and looking at this year is actually 2.5%.
Okay.
Instead of 3.
But that's not across the board?
No.
Okay.
No.
I move that we ask Angel to come back with some kind of plan in recognition and appreciation. Again, not a lot, but something that tells them, we understand we froze your salary and half of you are not unionized, and the unionized people did receive something.
So you want us to look at options?
Yes.
I mean, right now, you don't have any parameters for us to look at?
I don't know. You devised a nice plan, and I assume Angel can do likewise.
Well, if I might make a suggestion, with all due respect to Angel, I think if there's a recommendation, Marcia should make it to us, with input from Angel or whomever else.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll work together on that and come up with something.
Is there a second to that recommendation?
I second.
All right. It's to explore the concept, am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Ian, if you'd call for the vote, please.
Mrs. Waring.
Yes.
Mr. Reiner.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan.
I just want to make it clear that it's exploring at this juncture, so if we were to do anything, it would require another vote, is that what I'm understanding? Okay.
Ms. Janice Zerker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Salee.
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider.
Yes.
Thank you. And at this time, I assume you're going to talk about your experience with the Japanese consulate, right?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before I do that, however, I'd just like to commend all of staff from the various departments that participated in the Veterans Day recognition. You know, obviously, we had a change of plans at the last minute due to the rain and so forth, and everybody came together in short order, and from my perspective anyway, it came off very well. Also thanks to the schools and Sells Middle School for their cooperation. I think they appreciated the opportunity to show off their remodeled gymnasium and so forth. But you know, I thought it was a nice event for everyone, the veterans and the school children and staff and so forth. Excuse me, Joe or John, can you tell us from behind the cameras? I think that it was taped. Is it going to be on Dublin TV? Can you tell us when?
The Kasich speech is on right now. It's on the website. It's on the Veterans Day website, and then it'll be up in the next during this week. It'll be up by the end of the week. The whole thing.
Okay, all right. What we're being told off camera is that we'll be up this week on Dublin TV, correct? Yes. Okay, thank you. Then also, as Kathy mentioned, this past Friday evening, I attended the Japanese Consul General's reception in honor of the Japanese Emperor's 79th birthday. It's my understanding that that is quite the celebration in Japan, and certainly by the Japanese nationals here in the United States. The reception was held at the Detroit Institute of Art, as I mentioned, on Friday evening. There was a nice delegation from Ohio there. There were several other mayors there. Troy comes to mind, Findlay comes to mind, not surprisingly, I suppose, Toledo. Don't know whether Bell Fountain was there, but a lot of communities were represented. There were representatives of Columbus 2020 there, and then some of the other faces that would be familiar to you from the local Japan America Society of Central Ohio. But I think that you know, certainly it was good of us to have a presence there. I guess I was a little surprised. I didn't realize the extent of the Japanese population in the Detroit area. And I was one-upped a little bit by the mayor of Novi, who got up and before I did and bragged about the 2,500 or 600 Japanese nationals that reside in Novi, which we've all heard of Novi before, community similar to ours in some respects anyway. But in any case, one of the things, if you look to council anyway, distributed a copy of the program, and on the back, you'll just see some statistics and so forth. But I'd like to suggest that we explore the possibility of a sister city. If you look on the back, I think we're, you know, given that we're home to the largest population of Japanese nationals in the state of Ohio, I think we're kind of conspicuous, you know, by the fact that we don't have a sister city in Japan. Oh, I think the mayor of Worthington was there as well, interestingly enough. So
They've got a long-standing sister city, Worthington.
Which is all the more reason, I think, for us to at least explore the possibility.
Just for your information, it was explored historically, and the city opted not to because of the cost of sister cities. That was my understanding when I asked about it as well.
Was that a council decision?
I was not on council if it was voted on by council. It never came to council while I've been on it.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I think that was even before I worked here. I mean, it was a long time ago. And I do believe it came to council.
That's a really long time
and that
ago.
was a vote, but we will look at information and bring something back to council.
I know Barb Maurer was very interested in it, and I think it came up another time, and I'm not sure the reason that it was turned down. I can't remember why. But you were here, Marcia.
Was council willing to support exploring the idea?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then also, I just found it interesting in reading yesterday's dispatch regarding the city of Columbus's reserve, and you know how it had grown, and anyway, you know, which I guess is a good thing. But I found it interesting because this same publication, I think it was sometime a year ago or something, that they commented on cities' reserves in central Ohio, and they called out Dublin, Ohio as having too great of a reserve. But lo and behold, it's now a good thing because the city of Columbus has a reserve. Indeed, it's hilarious that, I guess, that people would question this. It says, but does the city government, meaning the city of Columbus, have too much cash? And it goes on to state that it's a question that elicits a chuckle from some economic policy analysts, given the national economic outlook. Who's quoted here? Somebody from the economic policy, taxation and economic policy in Washington. If you look at the state level, the old thinking was that the rainy day fund should be about 5% of your overall budget. And then the recession hit and states realized that 5% wasn't enough. So when you ask if Columbus has too much money, remember states are dumping more responsibility on local governments to provide services to the public, and cities are the ones who have to make sure they provide them. When asked whether the case can be made that the city has too much money, Mayor Coleman said the current revenues are giving Columbus long-term stability. He also warned the federal government's fiscal cliff could have a tremendous effect on the city. Mr. Dorian said revenue estimates he issues at budget times are always conservative. I think we've heard that before. Here locally, the city has too much money, have forgotten the recent past. I would say to those folks that it's only been a few short months ago when this city went through 90 million of its rainy day fund. So anyway, just ironic, that we were called out as having too large of a cash reserve a year ago, or I don't honestly, was it 18 months ago? I don't know. But
I'd like to also point out the way Columbus might have gotten there is they raised their income tax by 0.5%, and we maintain it 2%. So we're still looking.
No, I agree with you on that, Catherine. I don't see what all the hoopla is about, because all he did is raise everybody's taxes. Then they rewarded their political cronies with raises. So I'm not, when I read that article, I was really put out.
Sorry, thank you. Just had to get that off my chest. It just, it was a bad idea that we do it, but now it's a great idea. Moving on to more cheerful things. Tree lighting, November 29th. I'm not always grumpy. November 29th, I hope you all come out. We have a new tree, which I'm looking forward to seeing. And then finally, excuse me? It's tied down. And finally, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you. We're adjourned. I'm sorry, Amy. I got carried away with my rant. I apologize. Amy?
That's quite all right. I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Good night.